Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. In the latest edition of Rich States, Poor States, which you can get a free copy of, richstatespoorstates.org, there's such a wealth of data that my guest, John Williams, who is the chief economist and president of American Legislative Exchange Council. John, you've got, the draft is tonight. I'm wearing my orange and brown tie for the Browns. But we got a bunch of analytics geeks like Leah Beebe, who took a deep dive into your latest edition and came up with this stat. Louisiana is the most improved state this year, up 13 spots to number 18. Why'd they make that jump?
Well, it's really, Hugh, a great success story of our ALEC legislators coming together with Governor Jeff Landry. And Louisiana's been an underperformer for a long time. And what they did, of course, was the big flat tax. And this is a 3% flat tax that Governor Landry and the legislature got across the finish line just before the end of the year last year, and has really changed the trajectory, I think, between that and when you have that in school choice that they had just passed in the months before that put together. And all of a sudden, Louisiana is now primed for growth again. We've talked a lot on this show, Hugh, about the Southeast region, the SEC region being uber competitive. And when you're surrounded by Texas, Tennessee, and Florida, there's not a lot of room for error. And Governor Landry and the legislators realized that, and they took corrective action. And it's a huge win for the taxpayers of Louisiana.
I sometimes think I'm watching ESPN when I'm at richstatespoorstates.org because they're completely in the pocket of the SEC. But if you go over to richstatespoorstates.org and you start clicking on the states, you find that the SEC states are 10 and 2 and 18 and 28 and 20 and 13 and 15, and South Carolina is 29. That's really the only SEC state that's not doing very well. Texas is at 9. I think it's actually SEC bias, Jonathan.
Hey, you last week, you accused me of pro-Michigan bias. So this week,
they're the
SEC
same thing. That's the other side of the coin. Pro-SEC, everything that's anti-Ohio. I've begun to see the secret thread here. How about West Virginia? The most underrated turnaround, according to Habib. 38th in the first edition. I don't know what year that was. 16th today. What have they been doing there other than electing Republicans?
Well, you made a good point on the SEC just for a second, with South Carolina being the big laggard. They have a lot of work to do to catch up with their neighborhood. But West Virginia has been a great turnaround story. It's been one, Hugh, that's nearly 20 years in the making, since 2007, since we launched the Rich States, Poor States report. And now I think they have arguably one of the very best principled free market conservative governors in America in Patrick Morrisey. We have our ALEC National Chairwoman, Patricia Rucker, in the state Senate, who led the school choice victory just a number of years ago. And it is, in a way, a similar story like Louisiana, Hugh, where you have education freedom and tax cuts and tax reform going together. West Virginia obviously becoming a right-to-work state in the last 10 years. And now you go back 100 years of data. Talk about geeking out on data for a second here, Hugh. You can go back a century of data, and every single year, West Virginia lost population, some of its residents, to the other 49 states on net. They were a net out-migration state. After school choice, after tax cuts, after right to work, that all changed for the very first time in state history. After 2024, those new census numbers that came in right around the holidays, West Virginia became an in-migration state from the other 49 states. So, don't tell me for a second or believe the progressive naysayers. This is free market reforms at work, and if it can turn around a state like West Virginia with a 100-year losing track record, it can turn around any state, and that's a huge.
It's well said. I have one question, the one that makes me my eyebrows go up. Montana is 35th. Now, I know Governor Gianforte. I know their senators. I know their delegation. It's a conservative state. Why are they 35th, Jonathan?
Great question. I was there in Helena last week, and it's another state with not a lot of room for error when it's surrounded by the Dakotas at the top 10, with Wyoming a no income tax state, Idaho a top 10 state. We have some good progress in some cases in Montana with the housing reforms and zoning, the Montana miracle that we talked about on this show with Governor Gianforte, a good man who's at the helm there in the governor's office. But it's a state that has not kept up with the other states in terms of cutting taxes. And this is a shocker for folks that don't follow state policy, Hugh. Montana, being a red state, is still not a right-to-work state. So it's a forced union state with tax rates that are far above what the region has around for its competitor states.
We'll be digging deeper into rich states, poor states for a few weeks because it's a wealth of data geek info nuggets like that. Jonathan Williams is the president and CEO of ALEC. You can sign up for Rich States, Poor States at richstatespoorstates.org. Get your free copy. Or go to ALEC, ALEC.org/Hugh to sign up for the weekly newsletter on the state of the states. That's ALEC.org/Hugh. They're a great sponsor, great facts. Great to see you, Jonathan, although your anti-Buckeye bias is a deep concern to me. We'll get back to that next week. Don't go anywhere, America. Ambassador O'Brien is next.